But I do want to start my show talking about a player that can't beat Kansas City, at least when it matters, Josh Allen. So Josh Allen won the MVP last night, even though Lamar Jackson beat him head-to-head in the regular season. Lamar outplayed him on that game. Lamar had better stats. Lamar had a better passer rating. And Josh Allen won. And I have absolutely no problem with it, because I don't think 20 years from now we'll be saying, man, do you remember the year they gifted Josh Allen the MVP? Listen, there's two reasons why I would have given it to Josh Allen narrowly. Number one is, when Derrick Henry arrived in Baltimore, defenses playing the Ravens had to make choices and concessions. And many times it felt like the key to that team was not Lamar Jackson. It was Derrick Henry. And defensive coordinators had to make choices with the number 2 rushing running back in the NFL. In most years, Derrick Henry would have led the NFL in rushing, if not for Saquon Barkley's all-time year. As much as Josh Allen got support from James Cook, he was the 16th leading rusher in the league. Receiving core, they lost Stephon Diggs. Yet he won 10 of his last 12, 1 pick after December 1st, I think. And again, when you play the Bills, there is one and one mission only, and that is to stop Josh Allen. When you played the Ravens this year, some teams made the choice to concentrate on Derrick Henry. That, of course, opened things up a bit for Lamar Jackson. And the second thing is, not all MVPs look the same, and we all know that awards are subjective. I mean, Aaron Rodgers has 4 of these puppies. Tom Brady's got 3. There was a year that Joel Embiid of Philadelphia was gifted an MVP over Jokic because people felt Jokic had won 2. He shouldn't win 3 straight before the Nuggets even have a title. They did later that year. And Westbrook got an MVP because it was a good story. He had a bunch of triple-doubles. That doesn't mean you win a lot of games, but it does mean something. And KD had dumped him, and it felt like, man, this poor he's stranded on the OKC island. So they gave him one. And I think we get to a point, 7 years of Josh Allen. Since he entered the league, this has mostly been the powerhouse offense. And he has been so great for so long, it was time. I think back to one of my favorite movies of all time is Goodfellas. Martin Scorsese was the director. He did not win an Oscar for it. I think it's his best piece of art, his best piece of work. He didn't get it. And he'd been doing great movies forever. And so he came out with The Departed. Very good movie. I don't think it's an all-timer. I like it. Top 30. Goodfellas top 3. And they gave him the Oscar for it.
Okay. Guys. Josh Allen was not gifted an MVP. Okay? He deserved the MVP. He clearly did more than less. Let's get rid of any of the whole thing because we know this has become a quarterback award. Okay, we know that. But Josh Allen has been carrying the Buffalo Bills for years. This year included. Did he have some periods of time where he got some help? Absolutely. But do you know every single game that the Baltimore Ravens lost, Derrick Henry had like 80 rushing yards or less? Yeah. Every time the Baltimore Ravens lost, everyone kept saying, why does Derrick Henry not get the ball more? I mean, just even compare Pro Bowlers to you know, from the Ravens to the Bills. I mean, like, this is just kind of absurd that we're going to say this was gifted. Because then people said last year that the MVP was gifted to Lamar Jackson. And again, if you want to go by stats, well then technically Joe Burrow should be the MVP. So we know it's not just stats. So trying to say, well, Lamar Jackson had better stats. Like, again, the Baltimore Ravens had a beast of a run game and more weapons offensively in general. The Buffalo Bills in the middle of the season had to trade for Amari Cooper, who didn't even play the whole time. Not only did he not play, obviously, when he wasn't on the team, but even when he then got traded, he didn't play every game. So it's just kind of absurd. Josh Allen led this team. This team had an awful defense. He led them to the 2 seed. They were battling for the 1 seed. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Would have been their only loss if they didn't sit everyone against the Broncos. I mean, they literally were the first team to beat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And it was because of Josh Allen's heroics. Him keeping the ball and converting the 4th down and scoring a touchdown. We see Josh Allen on an island every single week with the Buffalo Bills. We do not see the Lamar Jackson on an island every single week. Now, I'm on the record saying that I think the Baltimore Ravens have failed Lamar Jackson a lot, even in the game against the Buffalo Bills. But to try to pretend, like, this is one of those years when it could have been, like, it could have been either or in a way. You know, I don't think you could have been furious about it necessarily. But, you know, it is what it is. But to try to act like this was, like, gifted to him, or to also act like Embiid wasn't deserving of the MVP either, like, come on, man. Just stop. And this is why I don't really care about these awards, because these are voted by random people who probably never played sports a day in their life. They don't watch all the games. They have their own biases. And I just don't care. I don't care about their opinions. I'll be honest, I really don't. You know, I always use it as a reference, like, you know, Chris Broussard has a vote for MVP. You know, Michael for the NBA, or at least he used to. Michael Wilbon, you know, votes on, you know, for you know, all NBA teams and, you know, first team, second team, and third team and stuff like that. Like, and it's just like, okay, right. He's watching all 82 games of every single player out there. Like, no, come on. So these voting awards mean nothing to me. They really do. But where it starts to matter to me is when you try to downplay what Josh Allen did, and that's just absurd. I've already talked about, and I know this is a regular season award, but in the playoffs alone, Josh Allen in his like 12 playoff games had to be the leading rusher in 7 of them. I mean, like, the weight that they consistently put on Josh Allen's shoulders is pretty wild. Pretty wild. It's just when you look at what Lamar Jackson did and what Josh Allen did, when you just compare some of their big games, their close games, because who cares what happens in these blowout games? That's when you juice up your stats and stuff like that. Like, what about when it matters? What about when it's really, really close? In those close games, for instance, for the Buffalo Bills versus the Chiefs, Josh Allen had to throw for 262 yards, 55 yards rushing, and was the leading rusher. And the ball was in his hands when it mattered most on that 4th down call. And he converts it for a first down and a touchdown to win the game. You know, versus the Jets, another close game, 23-20, ugly, 215 yards, 3 total touchdowns, 127.9 passer rating. You know, versus the Dolphins, no one could, they didn't even rush for a total of 100 yards. Another close game. He had to throw 39 times for 235 yards, 3 touchdowns. Versus the Rams, that insane game where he threw for 342 yards, 6 total touchdowns, 82 rushing. They got 20 yards out of Cook. The reliance on Josh Allen is just so obvious. I mean, in that snowstorm game, right? That was a blowout, but that was a snowstorm. They were heavily reliant on Josh Allen. 3 touchdowns, 141.3 rating. You know, versus the Lions, 23 for 34, 362 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 127 rating. Like, these big games demanded that Josh Allen have a big game. Anytime the game was close, like, it was all on Josh Allen's shoulders. Whereas for the Ravens, any of those close games, it's not to say that Lamar Jackson played poorly. That's not the argument. But he also didn't rise to the occasion against the Ravens, against the Chiefs. He missed multiple throws, which we saw clear as day. Had a 90 passer rating, and a fumble. And again, any of these close games, or any of the games that they just lost in general, you could see that Derrick Henry rushed for like 80, 85 yards or less in any of those losses. It was like you stop Derrick Henry, you lose the game. And so it's just, when you really kind of look at it, it just becomes pretty obvious how much more of a reliance they rely on Josh Allen and how inconsistent their own run game was. Whereas, if you give the ball to Derrick Henry enough, like, they're going to win. He's going to get his yards. And in fact, in any of those games where Derrick Henry had less rushing yards, which then led to losses, it was mainly just because they didn't hand the ball off enough to him. Like, that's actually what it came down to more. So we can't just say it's the numbers. He had more numbers than him, because that does not make sense. Because again, then Joe Burrow deserves it. Because again, if you want to use stats, then Joe Burrow, 4,918 yards. Lamar Jackson only 4,100. Sam Darnold had more. Geno Smith had more total yards. Baker Mayfield had more total yards. Touchdowns? Joe Burrow as well, 43. Lamar Jackson, only 41. Attempts. I mean, by a vast margin. Joe Burrow, 652. Lamar Jackson's all the way down here, 474. 16th in pass attempts. I mean, those things matter then. We can't just, again, if you want to play the stat game, well, then it's also not Lamar Jackson. So, and again, if you want to say, oh, well, the playoffs. Okay, well, Baker Mayfield led his team to the playoffs. So then it can't be that. I mean, it can't be that. Baker Mayfield's got 4,500 passing yards and a 71.4 completion percentage. Lamar Jackson's 66.7 completion percentage. So that's always my issue about when we try to really just zero in on stats more than anything. And again, I mean, we could do the same thing even with just a previous season, even with Lamar Jackson being the MVP. I mean, Tua, Goff, Dak, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, they all have more passing yards than Lamar Jackson. They all have more touchdowns. I mean, Lamar Jackson was, where is he at? 12th in total touchdown, in passing touchdowns. 15th in yards. He is 8th in completion percentage. We'll give it 7th because we won't count Jake Browning. He only played 9 games and started 7. So again, you got to be careful with kind of like how you're looking at it here. That's why, kind of trying your best to be consistent is really the most important. So again, what is the argument though then that you're saying that Lamar Jackson deserved it over Josh Allen? It can't be stats. If it was stats, then Lamar Jackson did not deserve to be the MVP last year. You can make the argument that it absolutely should have been Brock Purdy. I mean, why not? And you can say, well, Brock Purdy had too many weapons. What did Lamar Jackson have? Huh? Zay Flowers? Derrick Henry? Those were beasts of offensive weapons. Like, huh? Like, that doesn't make sense. So, what is the argument then? Like, that's what I'd like to know. Because again, it can't just be well, Lamar Jackson also runs the ball because so does Josh Allen. And again, they rely truly on Josh Allen's legs in massive key moments. Which then leads to wins. When Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills don't have a 100-yard rusher, they still win, especially when Josh Allen is the leading rusher. Not every time, of course, but it is all but a guarantee that when Derrick Henry had 85 yards or less, they did not win. They did not win. Like, that's the difference. That is truly the difference. The weight and the value that Josh Allen brings the Buffalo Bills is just more than that of Lamar Jackson. That's not to take away anything from Lamar Jackson at all. That's why I stayed away from this conversation as the weeks went on, because I have no big desire to try to debate between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. I really don't. I really, really don't. But when I see a video, a clip like this trying to act like Josh Allen was just gifted the MVP, it's a bunch of BS. It's a bunch of BS. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Baltimore Ravens had the 7th ranked defense according to PFF. 7th ranked defense. The Buffalo Bills were 27th. Okay? 27th. Those things matter. Those things